All right, we're up to building the motor mount assembly. Real easy to do this. First, we're going to dry fit all our rings. We're going to make sure that they all fit on the tube without too much hassle. Not doing this can cause all sorts of problems later on. We got that one fits inside. Now, I actually sanded these beforehand, so I knew they'd fit. A little tight there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wooden dowel with sandpaper on it, and I'm going to put it inside, and I'm just going to lightly sand and roll at the same time. So I'm taking off a little bit of paper. You can see the paper there. This will take the burrs off. A lighter sandpaper takes any rough burrs off. And then we'll dry fit. And boom, we have it made. Okay, so we've got the 4 large rings, and we've got the engine block ring. Engine block's going to go right on the end. No problem with that. Now I need to mark the end, so I'm going to put down EB inside the tube. That lets me know that that's the engine block. You can do a little aft or whatever you'd like on the outside. Just remember which side's which. Now, one ring is going to go right even with the end of the tube, the same side that you have the EB or your motor block is going to go onto. So let's go ahead and push that ring all the way down. Make sure we're flush and pretty all the way around. And let's go ahead and just take and draw a line all the way around the tube. Now we have a mark where we are going to put that at. We'll slide that on and leave that on there. Now the other end, we need to come up 3/8 of an inch. So let's come up 3/8 of an inch and mark the tube. So 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch right there. It's kind of hard to see with this light reflecting in my eyes here. So verify that that's 3/8. Now we're going to slide 2 rings on this side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm also going to mark all the way around this tube where those rings are. So now I've got them on. We'll just draw a line all the way around. What I'm doing is I'm giving myself a place to put the glue. I know exactly where I'm putting the glue at now. And I can slide those in. So now you can see I've got lines marking the tube. So when I go to put these on, it's not going to be difficult at all to figure out where they're going at. I'll smear some glue around here and use white glue. The wood glue tends to grab very quickly. The white glue does not. So go ahead and use white glue and slide them down quickly to the mark. Then we're going to smear glue around this end and do the same thing. Slide it down to the mark and we're good to go. Now with the motor, there's a couple ways to do this. We know how long a D engine is. We want it to hang out about 1/2 inch. So I can mark on the motor 1/2 inch. And then I can slide it up to that mark and I know how far up I need to shove my motor block. Or I can take another engine like this one's an E9 and I can slide in the block from the rear end and push the D in and then adjust it until I have about 1/2 inch of the mark engine showing out. Then I can take and I can mark my E engine all the way around. Now that mark tells me how far I have to slide the motor mount. So I'll use a popsicle stick or back of my hobby knife or something, smear some glue inside, and I'll be short of the mark. Put the motor block in and then slide it up until the tube hits it. Once it hits it, I know I'm deep enough and I can pull this back out. I can look inside, wipe out any extra glue I need to. Or you can come from the other end and mark it, use your D engine, mark it at 1/2 inch mark. And I tend to do it from the nozzle end where the nozzle is going to be. That way if there's any glue, I'm smearing it upwards and it's not going to be in the glue, will interfere with the motor. But I'll take and I'll smear my glue in way up here and I'll shove into the 1/2 inch mark on the motor and then I know I'm deep enough. I'm actually not going to put in a motor block on this one. You can take and put the motor in and then use your white tape to wrap around it and hold the motor in place, and that will hold this motor in place. The way you hold this assembly in the main body tube is pretty much the same way. It's going to slide in right up to those two notches, and then you're going to stop right there, and you're going to use tape around this ring and that motor mount or body tube right there, and that's how you hold this rocket in place, this part of the assembly. So you'll tape your 24mm engine in, and then you'll tape your motor adapter assembly in. And I've flown my other Aspire many times this way, and it works great. I've never had a failure. Just make sure you're using the nice white tape. So we're going to go ahead and glue it up. Once we're done gluing it up, it's going to look just like this. I glued this one earlier. Like I said, I have two kits, so I'm building them side by side. We can save the extra rings. That's the ring that goes inside the body tube to act as a motor block for the big tube. And this is the one that goes in the adapter, and it acts as the block for this one. Why don't I want to use these rings? Well, if I don't use these rings, I can use various size engines. If I use the ring and I set it up for a D engine, that's as far as I can slide an engine in. So if I can only slide an engine in that far, that means that this motor is going to hang out. If I decide I want to use an E, it's going to hang out way out like that, and that's going to throw my center of gravity, center of pressure, center of balance, and everything off, and I don't want to do that. So being able to slide your motor in up to the ½ inch mark and then tape it in place is a lot better than permanently locking yourself into a certain setup on the motor. So don't glue it in unless you really want to, or you really have to. Okay, we're about ready to go ahead and start gluing it up now. Again, we went through on how to do the different marks and using the rings as an engine block or not to use the rings as engine block. Again, I have another Aspire that I made some time ago, and this one I do have the engine block in there. So this one, if I want to use just D engines, is perfect. If I want to use E's or anything longer, I can put them in here. So what I like to do when I'm setting up an engine, and that's the ring that would go inside the main body of the larger body diameter rocket, and this would act as the engine block in here, but I might throw in something longer than what they recommend for the kit. I might go with a longer 3-grain motor or something like that. So this way I can do just about anything I want. So we're not going to use those two rings. Again, we did dry fit everything before we slid it on here. And we're going to make sure that all our rings are on there. And then we're going to smear our glue on here. And we're going to quickly slide the ring down. Now we need to do it quickly. This wood glue especially likes to grab really fast. So we're going to smear it on, and it's going to be kind of heavy. So we're going to have our towel ready nearby to wipe our finger on. And I'm going to put it on fairly heavy. If you put on just a little bit of glue and try and slide your ring on, even with the white glue, you'll find out that it grabs almost instantly, and it's very hard to push it down further. So if we use a reasonable amount of glue, it'll slide on easier. It acts like a lubricant for at least a few seconds, and then it'll actually start locking up. So we can see quite a bit of glue there, and we'll just take and we'll slide it down very quickly and seat it. And you can see how much glue actually came back off. Now I'm going to dry the end of this. I don't need extra glue all over the place. I can take this glue and make a fillet on the edge of the engine mount. So now I'm adding to the strength of this ring here on the rocket. And I'll go back and I'll take glue and I'll actually do it all the way around. And actually it worked just enough. So, and again, we don't want to get excess glue up here on the ring itself, so we're going to check that and we're going to wipe any off. And then later on we're going to stiffen it, and I'm going to go show you how to do that in just a second here. So now we've got our lower section we're going to do. This one's going to be the harder one to do. Let's change up, get a new piece of paper. And I use the paper to help prevent getting a bunch of glue on my board that I don't need there. Throw a couple pieces down. it peels off the board, but you know, why get a bunch of glue on it if I don't need to? Okay, again, liberal amount of glue all the way around. Now if we keep turning, it's not going to, yeah, that's a lot of glue there. If we keep turning, it's not going to start dripping. So, and I'm trying to make sure that I don't have any glue above my line, because if I have glue above my line, that's where it's going to start grabbing. So I'll run it right up to my line, but not past it. Okay. So now we're going to slide it down until we see our marks. Once you hit the glue, go quickly or you will be stuck. And we hit the mark. Get this excess off here. And we'll transfer it over to here. For any excess glue on the rings, wipe that off. Okay, so there we have our engine mount tube ready to go. Now we'll set that off to the side to dry, and we're going to do another step. You're going to be putting this in and out of your rocket a lot, and you're going to have hot ejection gases coming out here. You're going to be shoving a motor in on this end constantly. Now this is the one I had on my other Aspire, and I've been using it multiple launches. I love this rocket again. So what do I do to help prevent wear and tear on the rocket in those areas? Okay, this is the one I glued up earlier. I'm going to take super glue and I'm going to put it right down here around the bottom. And I think I'm just about out of super glue here. And it looks like I am out of super glue, so we'll be getting some more super glue before we finish this off. So we're going to take the super glue and we're going to put it around down here on this lower section and then on the upper section. We're going to smear it around. I use the thin because it soaks in really good. I've got some thick here. I don't think this would work as good as I want it to. I'll try it just to see. Awful thick, so I don't think that would work too well. Yeah, that's way too thick, so that wouldn't work. But we're going to smear that super glue in here and in here, and we're going to go in a 1/4 inch at least. That's going to stiffen it up, and if you look carefully, you can see a discoloration of the super glue about a 1/4 inch inside here to a 1/2 inch. So that's stiffer than it normally would be. That way I'm able to not worry about the hot ejection gases or the sliding of the motor in and out, wearing this off really, really fast. We don't want that to happen. So after that, I'm going to also take and I'm going to put super glue on the rings. Now that super glue is going to dry, then I'm going to dry fit it into the body tube after it dries and see if it's tight or loose. A little tight's okay. We don't want it too awfully loose. I can build up with some more super glue or masking tape, but if it's too tight, I'm going to sand a little bit. And the super glue will soak into the fibers a little bit, and that's going to beef up this because this is something that you're going to be putting in and out of the rocket. So if we beef it up, it's not going to tear up. You can see here where it's kind of tore up a little bit, just wear and tear on the ring there. So that'll help prevent wear and tear on the rings.